It's Jo here, the educational gardener from Bulwell Forest Garden in Nottingham, and welcome to Let's Get Growing. And things have, we're at the end of September, coming towards the end of September, and things have turned very autumnal. So September's been quite a changeable month. We've had sunshine, but we've also had quite a lot of rain, and it has been quite windy. But yeah, there's still plenty to do, and so let's get busy, let's get cracking, let's get growing. So let's start with this week's packs. So this time of year, at the end of September, we won't be sowing anything sort of frost tender, so we're focusing now on sort of hardy plants. So the first thing you should have is a small packet of land cress seeds. So land cress, they're a really hardy vegetable. They're hardy green and they're really good to grow in winter, and we're going to grow these from seeds. So it tastes a little, it's very similar, the taste, to watercress, except you can grow it on land, as its name would suggest. So we're going to sow these in a pot. So I've got a pot which it's sort of quite a wide pot, but not really deep, but I've got some homemade compost and some leaf mould, quite rough in here, and then I'm going to top that up with some of my peat-free compost. And then with my seeds. And these actually grow better in cooler weather than in the heat. Get into them. So I'm just going to do what's called broadcasting, which is just scattering the seeds across the surface, not too thickly, otherwise I'll have to prick them out. So I'll get my pinch of seeds, use my finger and thumb of my right hand, and then just scatter them on the surface. These are a really nice addition. You can use them as a garnish, put them in a salad. Usually eat them raw. They've got it's got a really good flavour as land cress. Really nice in the winter months when there's not that many other greens around. Okay, so I think that's enough. So I'm just going to cover the seeds up. They're quite small, so we don't want to bury them too deeply, otherwise they'll rot. A bit of compost over the surface, and give them a good press down, and then a water with a fine rose on the end of the watering can so we don't flush the seeds out, and then I put my label on. So that's the land cress. Okay, the next thing that you should have in your pack is a small packet of hollyhock seeds. So hollyhocks are biennials, which means they've got a 2-year life cycle. So we start growing them now to flower for next year. We've got some outside that are flowering now actually from previous packs. So I'm going to sow these into a small seed tray. You could use mushroom punnets, a fruit punnet, as long as it's got holes in the bottom. So I'm going to put my peat-free compost in. And then these are seeds that I've saved. So you can see that's the seed case, and then inside we've got these little round seeds, which is what you'll have in your packs. And then again I'm just going to broadcast these across the surface. And then what I'll do with these once they grow, if they grow, is prick them out. A few more. Spread them out, and then I'm going to again cover them up with a bit of compost, press them down, make sure they're under the surface, and then I've got my label, and again water with a fine rose until they start to germinate. And then finally you're going to have a little, what's called an Echinops. This is Echinops Ritro. So this is a perennial plant. It's a really good plant for wildlife. It's got big blue round spiky flower heads that bees absolutely love. And so and what I'm going to do with this, you won't have to do anything with this because we're just propagating them at the moment. So what I'm going to show you instead is how I propagated this. So we've had to dig some plants out of a border because we're having the polytunnel reskinned. So I think propagating by sort of perennials, by root division, is probably one of my favourite methods of propagation, because you just get so many plants out of one plant. You can suddenly multiply it by so many more. It's quite exciting. So this is the big clump, so that was one plant. So what I'm looking for on this plant, this is old woody growth here. These roots are old woody growth. So I'm looking for new growth. So if we look around the plant, and we can see inside here these sort of smaller growths here with the red, they've got a red sort of root. Now a sharp knife's probably better than a pair of scissors. What I'm going to do in here is to try and cut, so I might go for that one, some of this system off, and I'm going to try and get what's called a bit of a heel. So that's a bit of the material, a bit of older growth. That's it. So that's going to be my new plant, and I've got what's called a heel here. And then what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to cut off, it may seem harsh, but if we've got loads of foliage on the plant, then the plant will be trying to keep the foliage alive instead of growing new roots, and we want new roots to grow. So I'm going to chop off these leaves here like that, and I'm going to leave this bit of new growth here. And I could get all of your plants for your packs out of this. Okay, so then what I need is a small pot, and I'm going to fill it up with compost. I'm going to dib a hole in the middle, and then I'm going to plant my plant up to that level. And then I'm going to give it a really firm press down. You can do this with loads of perennials at this time of year if you want to multiply your stocks of plants. And then we'll put a label in, and then again I'm just going to water that with a fine rose. So that's this week's packs. So we're going to have a quick look now at some of the things from previous packs. So what I really wanted to show you, and this is what I did 2 weeks ago to show you how to propagate strawberries, and I said it won't take long. So I showed you how in the last video how to peg down a strawberry runner. So we're going to check if that's got any root system. So I'm just going to pull it gently, and there's resistance there, so I know that there's some roots in there. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to cut it off from the parent plant. So I'm going to cut the runner off there, and then let's have a look, let's investigate and see if I'm right. Look at that, look at that, that's in 2 weeks I think. So there you go, how easy is that? So the other things I want to show you, these were my Sweet Rocket, Dame's Violet. So they've been pricked out into individual trays, so they're doing fine. My Campions, they were put into bigger pots. I think they've got some kind of sort of mildewy thing on the leaves here, but I think what needs to happen with these, so I've got some nice healthy robust plants, and before it gets too cold I'm going to plant these into a wild, probably wild meadow area of the garden, so they can flower next spring. So let's have a look at the Wallflowers. So our Wallflowers are in this size pot. So what I've done with these is I think they're ready for the next size pot. So I've potted them on, and I'll do that with these other two. And the same with the Sweet Williams, which grow really fast. So there's 6 of those there, and I'll put them all into this size pot. and the foxgloves, which surprisingly a few of these did quite well, though they were very unpromising. So I've got about 6 here, and these little ones I'll probably won't bother with them, so I'll be pricking those out, potting those on. And just to end with my plant of the week, which is fabulous, Lovelies Bleeding. It's got many names: Amaranthus, Callaloo, one of our workers calls it Audrey. So Callaloo, when it's a young plant, it's an annual, tender annual. When it's young, you can eat its leaves. When it's got to this stage, the leaves are quite bitter, but it's got these fabulous sort of flower heads, which are very, very decorative. So, happy gardening!
Very good. Well done. That's a wrap.